Welcome to the 1871 podcast, and for this episode, we're joined by Royals goal-scoring legend Adam Le Fondre. But before we speak to Adam, a heads up for you that we have two more episodes coming up over the next few days. So on Wednesday evening, we'll be discussing what type of manager will be a good fit to take Reading forward, and we'll be speaking on that episode to one of the managers who is on the bookmakers list of potential next Reading manager. So he will be our special guest. I won't say who it is, but he has had experience of managing a League One club, and he's won promotion with that club. So he'll be our special guest. One of the managers that is apparently in contention as next Reading manager. So that episode is available from 6 p.m. on Wednesday. And then we'll have another episode for you on Friday evening where we'll be joined by Dylan Kerr and several Reading fans to discuss what has gone wrong for Reading this season and also over the last few seasons and what needs to happen for the club to bounce back. So that's all coming up for you in the next few days on the 1871 podcast. But now it's time for a chat with tonight's special guest. So hello, Adam Le Fondre, and welcome back to the 1871 podcast.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back.
No, you're very welcome and very much appreciated. We're speaking to you late at night on Sunday, and it's very early in the morning, 7 a.m. Sydney time. So really appreciate you getting up early to speak to us. And I know you've got a busy day ahead of you. So Adam, if it's all right with you, let's start by talking about Reading's relegation to League One. Firstly, what are your thoughts about that, and what are your thoughts about what's gone wrong for Reading this season, and also probably since you left the club, it's been a gradual kind of culmination of things that have happened over the last few seasons. What are your thoughts, Adam?
I think first and foremost, obviously, it's hard to say the right word with obviously the relegation. I think, for me, still having sort of ties at Reading and always looking for their results and stuff. They started the season so brightly, and to end the season, the second half of the season was, just not good enough really. And obviously, I don't want to, pile on or anything like that. But as a club, it's obviously not good enough. The fans are rightly not happy, and I'm sure the players, with the playing staff they've got, they didn't expect to be relegated as well at the start of the season. I think obviously overall, if you're getting a bad run of form, it's so easy to just to stay in that run of form and not be able to turn results around. And ultimately, when it comes to the crunch time of the season, if you don't pick up the right results, we've done it where we were the other way around, where we seem to just nick wins out of nowhere. And if you're getting the wrong results at the wrong time of the season, then that's a recipe for disaster. And probably disaster is a good word for it, really. I've only known Reading to be a Championship club for pretty much all my footballing life, and for them to be obviously getting relegated now, it shows it doesn't matter how good a club you are, how big of a club you are, and how much money you have. They've got a lot of money now. How much money you have, it doesn't matter, because if you do things wrong and mismanage things, you're going to get punished for that. And that's what it is. The club have been punished with relegation. The fans have been punished with relegation, and obviously the players as well. So it's a great chance for a heroic season next season. But obviously being relegated is an awful thing. I've been there myself, and it's not great.
And Adam, what do you think Reading need to do next? So in the summer, what do you think Reading need to do ahead of next season to kind of build solid foundations, if you like, for next season and the future?
I think from my perspective, obviously I don't know the ins and outs of the club, etc. Obviously being millions of miles away, etc., or thousands of miles away even, and obviously not being at the club for a very long time. I think it's sort of, the Reading way was always said to me when I was there. We do things the Reading way. And, from the outside looking in, it seems as if Reading have not done that. Obviously, they've changed owners. They've had access to a lot of money, which, maybe Reading haven't always had access to. And off the back of that, they've got financial punishments because they've gambled with signings and not bought the right players in, and it's not worked out for the players. And I think, ultimately, I think Reading need to go back to what they're about, and that's, getting the recruitment right, getting the right people in the dressing room who, fight for the badge, fight for the club. You can see their endeavour pouring out. Obviously, you want flair players, you want the good players in the league, and I'm sure Reading will have no problem attracting some of the best players in League One because they're a big draw. That, like I say, that all my career I've never known them to be in League One. I think I've seen some they've not been in League One for 20 years or something like that, or something along them lines. So, for any player who's coming off contract or who they're interested in, I think will be a big draw to be part of a promotion, challenge in League One. And obviously on top of that, Reading always invest heavily in their youth system, and always, their squads always have youth players, breaking through the academy players, breaking into the squad. And I think that's what you have to get. You have to get a good blend of, the older pros, which, I think DNA of any successful squad has, good older pros. You have the talented players who are experienced in the middle, and, you have the really talented youth players who are, to establish themselves as players. And, you have to have players who have a real connection with the club and obviously with the fans as well, because, you all have to be pulling in the right direction, from the boardroom to the director of football, to the manager, to the players, to the fans. Everyone has to be going in the right direction. You can't have people pulling away and obviously slagging off here, slagging off there. And you just can't have that if you want to be successful. And, I've read quite a few things recently, obviously on Twitter. I think on my feed, I get a lot of angry Reading fans, which have comes on like the following feed, which obviously suggests tweets you should read and stuff like that. And I've seen a lot of the stuff that's been said, and quite a lot of it seems to ring true with what I think. Obviously, they're gonna have, like I said, they're gonna have access to I think a lot of money this season as well, because obviously they've done their financial punishments, and then obviously League One doesn't have as stricter rules, I think I read. So there's an opportunity to spend the way out of the league, which in theory is a great idea, but it can also put you in a deeper hole as well. So I think spending has to be meticulous. I think the right players have to be signed. They have to be certain characters. I think if you're going to spend good money on them, and Reading have probably not done that in the past 10 years, and on what they've spent their money on and on what they've got returned for that as well. I think now is an important time where your management choice and your director of football really knuckle down on the signings and to be of the right ethos and the right character to play for Reading Football Club.
And talking of the managerial situation, there's a lot of opinions from the fans, of course. Do you think, Adam, that Noel Hunt should be given a chance, or do you think it should go to someone else? And if you do think that, what type of manager do Reading need to take the club forward from this point?
I think because football's moved on so much, depending on what squad you've got available to, I think Hunty would do a great job because he bleeds, obviously for Reading. Everything he does is for Reading, and I think he would do a fantastic job given that he had the full support of everyone. I think any manager coming in will have, their own ethos, etc. But they also have to tap into how good of a fan base the club has got, how good of an academy the club has got, and build that into whatever they're thinking for the club. There's going to be a certain way of getting out League One. Yeah, there's probably many ways actually of getting out League One. You can obviously go to a big brutal team, which I was part of at Bolton, where we were, we had towering players at the back and big Gary Medina up front, and played quite direct. But we managed to, batter our way through League One doing that. And Sheffield did, not the opposite, but they played 3-5-2, where their centre halves were making, overlapping runs and crossing the ball and stuff like that. And they were overwhelming teams. So there's plenty of ways of skinning a cat, so to say. But there's also a certain way that Reading like it in their fan base and how they like to see football. So I think a manager has to have as their plan, and they have to be given time, of course, as well. I think obviously management now is, the lifespan's really short as a football manager. So I think obviously coming in, providing they don't do the boring lose every game and score, then you have to be given time to see what they're doing and obviously build with them. But I think any manager coming in has to almost have success on the resume, because people, probably the chair people and the people running the club are going to want to see that they've done that before. Like I say, Reading is a big club in League One. I'd love for Hunty to get it and be tasked with that challenge, because I think he'd do fantastic at it. But I think ultimately they'll go with someone with probably big experience at getting people promoted, or someone who's got a track record of getting someone out of League One, because I'm guessing like they're not going to want to linger around in League One. Plenty of teams can do that. So League One has got such big clubs in there at the moment that it's going to be a challenging season. So there's no divine right to get promoted straight out there. So everything has to be on point with what the club do in terms of recruitment, management, and playing style.
And Johnny, I'll hand over to you now.
Andy, you're saying, I know you haven't played in England for a while, but what's League One to the Championship? You went from League One Championship, Reading are going from Championship back to League One. I remember 25 years ago when we did that last time. How big a challenge do you think that is for the players? What's the gap? What's the gap between the Premier League Championships? It's down to League One. What would you think that they need to be wary of, or what mindset that they need to have?
Well, I think obviously the gaps have got a lot closer. I think between the Championship, League One, and League Two. I think you can see that with the teams going up from each division always do well in the division above. I think obviously always the biggest gulf is Championship to Premier League, because the Premier League have got access to all that money. So as soon as you go up to the Premier League, there's such a big gulf, because everyone can recruit fantastic players. Look how Brentford have done it, and obviously Brighton as well. They're model clubs of how to recruit and bring players in. So obviously the financial challenges of that make it really hard, Championship to Premier League. But going down from the Championship to League One, I wouldn't say there'd be that much difference. The quality from League One coming up to the Championship will be very similar. I think obviously the teams will be, I think obviously Plymouth have gone up. I think Ipswich the other one, and obviously the playoffs are still going on now. So hopefully Bolton go up as well and get back to the Championship as well. But obviously you've got to have a good squad, and I think obviously the problem is for Reading going down is if you think you're too good to be relegated, or you're in that mindset of let's feel sorry for ourselves, then that's definitely the wrong mindset to be in. You have to take the challenge on, and I don't want to sound disrespectful or anything like that, but Reading have not had a lot to cheer for really in the Championship for a long time. So this could be a bounce back season. It could be a great time. I know it's obviously the silver lining is you got a chance of a promotion winning season. The season coming up after a terrible season of relegation, that when might bring a bit of good times back instead of clinging on for dear life in the Championship, and hopefully that reinvigors the club. They manage to move whatever players on they need to move the finances around, bring in some young hungry players who can help the older pros in the squad, and really help the club push on and start to kick on, because you've seen that with other clubs. If you look at Luton, Millwall, Coventry, who've Coventry were in League One not long ago, and obviously Mark Robbins has done a fantastic job there. And like I say, the other two clubs I named are not huge clubs in the Championship, but they're all in and around the playoffs and have fans. So I think there's a lot of things that you can look forward to as a Reading fan, but obviously you're going to have a little bit of dread as well in the back of your mind, because you can get stuck in League One, and that is that's not a good place to be, and you don't want to continue to slide as well, because Bolton did that. They went out of the Championship into League One and went into League Two, and it looked, horrendous for them. But now they're finally coming back as well, and which is great, obviously, for me as a fan of both teams. But I think for Reading, obviously they should go with a lot of confidence going into the season, providing, like I said before, they get everything right recruitment wise, and it's such a big thing, and obviously earmark the right academy boys they've got at the moment, who are going to make an impact, that they come back ready to play in League One as well. I think that's a big thing, is that players are ready with the right mindset to make a difference in that league, and obviously it's all right for me to say that Reading have never been in League One for so long, and they're too good for League One, but they've got to prove that as players. They've got to prove that, and I'm sure with the squad they've got, they'll take that challenge.
And like, going back, when geez, you're at the start of our last good faith, when you had to go to Cardiff to settle the tax bill, wasn't it? And what could you see the writing on the wall at that time, with things changing for not good, and what was happening for yourself and the team around you?
No, really. I think there was always going to be a casualty. I didn't think it was going to be at the time. Especially when we like, obviously I spoke quite a lot to the club about a new contract as well, just before I was leaving in that March time. Obviously we were coming out of the Premier League, and we were talking then, and they were saying we'll sort it out next season, but that's for another day. I didn't really envisage the sort of problems that have come on there. I just think, obviously, the recruitment they did from then sort of went away from what Reading did. A lot of big money signings, which ultimately obviously didn't work out if you look at the league position. Obviously, I know they got to the playoff final and the penalty shootout, and they were so close to going back with Jaap Stam, but I think ultimately, a lot of recruitment that they brought in didn't quite work. I don't think they've made any money back on any players. It's criminal to let a player of John Swift's talent go for a free. Criminal. Whenever I played against him, one of the best players in the league, can't let him go for free. That's impossible to do that. That's definitely not good business. So making decisions like that and letting people walk out who are commodities, who worth good money, as always, you have to realise when the right time to let them go is, and not allow them to walk away for free. I thought that's just that's disastrous business, and it's not how a good football club runs. Especially if you've not got success off the back of it as well. So proofs in the pudding really with that one. It's just so hard. Like it's like I say, it's just incredibly hard. You don't know where to sort of go from there, and with like I say, the way they've recruited over the years, it's
been coming, isn't it?
It's there's been a few red flags of who they've signed over the years, and you just look, you don't know if they've had the right direction, right sort of people in the the owners here, and telling them where the best place to send it, and who's in control of that recruitment as well. Hopefully now, I think Mark Bowen's in at the moment, isn't he? So
Brian Kerry from Tottenham is as well director of recruitment, so it's just a big signing. Well,
let's hopefully that the recruitment are speaking to, obviously when they get the manager in as well, of course, and them three are working really closely together, identifying the right sort of people that come and play for Reading FC. I'm sure they'll find talented players, but it's got to be the right sort of people who play for the club and who have the right sort of character as well, to deal with that challenge. It's going to be a challenge. As fans, you're going to be favourite in the league this season, so you're going to demand from them. It's not going to be, let's be happy to win a game in the champ here or there. It's, we want to win the majority of games in Reading. We want to be, in League One, we want to get promoted. So, they've got to be ready for that challenge as well.
Deal with the pressure, isn't it? I guess that's it comes with that success, or trying to build success.
Yeah, exactly. That's, that's life as a footballer. You want to be playing for something. You don't mid-table all your career. It's a very easy living doing that, but at the end of your career, you won't have much to show for it. You know, accolade.
You wouldn't fancy coming back next season and partnering Andy Carroll up front then?
We're a bit late. They should have got Andy Carroll a few years ago. I remember we played him at West Ham. He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But obviously, he's going to be, if he stays, obviously, he's going to be absolutely unbelievable in League One. Yeah. You know, having someone like that in League One is incredible. Obviously, if he plays the majority of the games as well, you know, he's a fantastic player. So, you know, having someone like him, building around him, and feeding him, obviously, you know, getting him in the right place, he's going to score a lot of goals and be a great, you know, starting point for a team. So,
yeah.
Obviously, it's important to keep him and keep him happy and build a team around him, I guess.
I'll bring you back. Keep him up.
Yeah, and talking of scoring plenty of goals, you know a lot about that, Adam. You were top scorer for Reading 3 seasons in a row, weren't you? And you're still scoring goals regularly for Sydney. So you've played more than 100 games for Sydney FC. You've scored more than 70 goals in that time. And I know Sydney are having a good run, and you're having a good run of goal scoring form. So Sydney have won the last 4 games, and you've scored in the last 5 games in a row. So you're 36 now, I think. If I've got that right.
36 years young.
Yeah. Have you had to, you know, talking about comparisons with Andy Carroll, and he's, you know, obviously he's been around for a long time as you have, you know, going back quite a long time now to your Reading days. Have you had to adapt the way that you play? Because obviously your goal scoring touch is still there, but have you had to sort of adapt that a bit as you've got a little bit older?
Not particularly. I think I still play very similar. You know, me as a player, I've always been, obviously, you know, you've seen it, Ferdinand. I've always been pretty much a goal poacher, and you know, there'd be spells where I'll be asked to bring people into play and play as more of a traditional 9. But you know, I've been quite lucky here in Australia. They've got really good, you know, sports scientist department that really helped me and sort of tailor my training to me. And obviously in the games, you know, I've been quite lucky, touch wood, that in my whole career I've not really had many injuries, apart from, you know, the last 18 months have been really hard. I've had 3 hamstring tears, which is not great for someone at 36 years old. But you know, it's that's been a real mental challenge, and you know, made me think a little bit different about the game. And I've come back from this hamstring tear, and you know, in the last run of form that I'm on at the moment, and had to just alter my game just slightly as, you know, my body adjusts to getting back fit. So, you know, the tweaks that I do make is more about physically. You know, obviously, I can't do what I did when I was 26 again. I can't do what I do when I was 18. You know, the running I did then was, you know, or the intensity of the running I did then was a lot higher. But you know, I've still got a lot of good spells in me of when, you know, I have to pick and choose when I, you know, access that sort of level of intensity again. And you know, at the moment now we won the elimination final the other day, so obviously now the intensity, you know, ramps up. So the moment where I've been sort of running myself a little bit on lower level, I can, you know, give myself the chance to get to that, you know, extra energy, the extra intensity that I need for these games now, which are the most important in the season. And you know, obviously for me, I love scoring goals. There's nothing better for me as a player, and obviously scoring goals and being successful as well. That obviously helps. But yeah, it's been fantastic. You know, from 10 years ago, obviously everything pops up from Reading and my time there, and I'm forever retweeting it. But you know, I've changed a little bit, but I wouldn't say, you know, if you looked at me now from then, you'd see much of a different player. I'm still putting chances away, and you know, I'm still running around a little bit like a headless chicken as well. So you know, I never lose that sort of love for the game, and you know, that love for winning, and obviously scoring goals as well.
And you're in the semi-finals of the A-League, what they call the finals series. So can you explain, it's obviously different from the way that we do things over here. So can you explain a bit how the finals series works, and what you're aiming for with that? Obviously to win the final, but what does that sort of mean, if you like?
Yeah, so obviously it's a 12-team league. 6 of them make the playoffs. The first who come first are the Premier's champions. So obviously, you win the league, you get celebrated for that. But as you go into the playoffs with the 6 teams, the first and second, they get a rest for a week, and then third play 6th, fourth play 5th. We were 5th, so we played 4th, which were our rivals, Western Sydney, and you play them in a one-off game, and then the highest seed gets the home leg in that game. So we went and played them away from home, and obviously beat them at their place. So we progressed through, and then once you progress through that, the lowest seed in the league. So we play top of the league. So we play first, and obviously the other team play second, and we play them in 2 legs in the following week. So now we've got a game on Friday, and then the following Friday we play them away, and from that, hopefully you get the aggregate win, and then you play the GF, which I think is in June. I think the start of June is the grand final date. So that's obviously what we strive for. Being at Sydney, we've always, since I've been here, we've always had big ambitions to obviously win the big prizes, and it's sort of fed into the ethos and the culture here, and we've give ourselves a chance of doing that. We're playing against the best of the league, and we've had some great run-ins with them over the years I've been here, as we've been the best and they've been the second best, and it's sort of like been to and fro in between us, but they've sort of took it on in the last 18 months. So it's a chance for us to, exact some revenge and put our flag back on the, the top of the mountain of Australian football.
And I've got a couple more questions, and I'll hand back to you, Johnny. So, Adam, for anyone who's not familiar with the A-League and Australia, what sort of players are playing in that people would know from, the Premier League or Championship or whatever?
Well, I'm playing with, on Sydney, we've got Rodwell, Joe Lolly, who was at Forest as of last season, and he's come out here. Diamante was here. He's literally just left. Trying to think who else. Melbourne City. Schneiderlin's out here for Western Sydney Wanderers. He came out in the second part of the season for them. I'm trying to think of some other big names. Put me on the spot here. Mark Beavers, who I played with at Bolton, is at Perth. Zach Clough as well, who I played with at Bolton, is at Adelaide. I'm trying to think of the other finals teams. Jason Cummins as well, obviously a big character. He's out here. And then there's obviously a lot of the Socceroos. A lot of the national team comes from within the league as well, or there's a fair chunk of them who are here playing. And some, they've sort of changed the model now and tried to rely heavily on youth and, push the youth agenda through. So we've got some good young players in the league as well, which, obviously one player who just left the league, Gran Qual, who went to Newcastle, and then obviously he's at Hearts on loan at the moment as well. So, there is some good young players there as well.
Yeah, and I think I'm right in saying, Johnny, aren't I, that Adam's not the first Reading striker that's played in the A-League. I think Stuart Lovell played in the A-League for a while, didn't he?
He played in the old days, but we've had Lloyd Awusu was over there, wasn't he, for a while? Massar and Neville Roach back when it was the National League, I think it was, back in the 90s.
Neville Roach.
Grant Brebner was there for a while, was Steve Mortone. There's been a bit of a history there, isn't it, with Reading players? And Feds played there as well for a while, didn't he, Adam?
Yeah, Feds was there with McCarthy. Yeah. He did really well when he was here for a little bit.
And Adam, just want to ask you about your playing career. Have you had any thoughts about what you'd like to do after you finish playing, and how much longer have you got left to go as a player, do you think?
I I think it's hard to say like a timescale for me as a player. I'm really enjoying playing football. I've been enjoying scoring goals, and that at this moment in time doesn't look as if it's slowing down. So I'm quite happy with that. I think for me, the big thing for me is how my body feels. I think my body will tell me when it's time to sort of hang it up. I don't want to be a shell out there and not enjoying football, and obviously getting a lot of injuries. Then that would be a problem for me. I don't want to carry a bad mood around me because I love playing football that much. I know how much it'll affect me personally as well. So obviously I think it's important as well that like my family I've been through everything with me, my wife, my children, and they've been such big stable forces in my family life and in my football life that obviously there's got to be a time where I just say, like, come on, let's not be silly anymore. We don't need to do that, and spend some proper time and have some weekends a little bit with the wife and kids, and obviously put them first, because they put me first for forever long since they've been with me. I've been the sort of the number one priority, and they've sort of took a back seat to that and joined on. But obviously it'd be nice to obviously just be sort of regular again, and just say, like, come on kids, what do you want to do? I've been enjoying watching my eldest daughter play football for PE here. It's been really fun watching her, and just watching grassroots football again it's exciting. It's certainly different to what I do. I think for me personally, when I think I'll stay in football for sure. I think I've been doing a lot of work with the young strikers. There's one young striker here who really a lot with him, because he's always pestering me. So I quite like that. I quite trying to help him. I think as a striker coach, I think I can add a lot to pretty much anyone's game. Really, I've got a keen eye for what needs to be done in the penalty area, and I think I've got an half decent resume that backs it up as well. So I think as a coach, as a development coach, I like the idea of an under-21s role, or like I say, a striker's coach or a striker's mentor, which are becoming a bit more prevalent in football now. And on the grander scheme of things, I'd probably looking down the line at maybe a recruitment role. I'd love to say director of football. That's something I would love to aim for, but I've got to get on the pathway for that first. And at the moment, I've just literally completed my UEFA B license. So the next step is probably to get my A license, and then probably work on towards going the recruitment way after that. But it's getting the foundations in place for that to happen by getting my B done, get my A done, and work on maybe a sporting directorship role after that, and do something that funnels me towards that way of thinking and job role, obviously. But I think in the meantime, obviously, why I'm trying to do that, I want to try and help younger players become better. I think that's, as I've become older as a player, and I don't think I really had that forever in my career, where a young player an older player who's been there, got a decent track record. I've done what I'd like to think, and I know a lot about scoring goals. I know a lot about the game as well. I watch a lot of football, obviously, and look at the nuances of good strikers and what they do, and how they get in great positions. And I think any young striker would love to have someone like that to sort of lean on. I think if I was scoring now, and if I had someone like me to work with, I would absolutely thrive off it, because there's stuff you can ask them, the stuff they've done in their career. What can you see that can help them? Sometimes outside eyes are better than your own, and when you're looking back at things yourself, you can't see it yourself. I always ask for other people's opinion, because you want to see what they see rather than what you see, because when you look at things, it's maybe a little bit rose tinted, and you might think a little bit different until someone says something that completely out of your thinking, and you think, what, you're right, I need to do that instead. And I think for me personally, I think that's where I'll sort of land between, I'll probably step into coaching at first, and hopefully progress up my way from there.
And do you see yourself staying in Australia, or are you looking possibly to come back to the UK at some point?
It looks very cold over
Yeah,
there. I'd come home.
Cold and windy.
Yeah, it is actually cold at the minute. Yeah, it's freezing. I'm sat right, so I've got a hoodie on in the morning. I think we'll be coming home to England. You know, as much as I love it out here, unfortunately, I was a bit silly when I first got here. I didn't sort out the permanent residency and that sort of thing. So, you know, the timescale of that being completed and getting citizenship isn't on the side for me to carry on playing football as well. So, looking like, you know, me and my family will be coming home to England and we'll go from there. I don't know when that will be, but you know, that's what will happen. My family and me will come home, and you know, obviously I'll see my family. I've not seen my mum and dad for 2 and a bit years. I'm coming home this summer. You know, I've got a lot of things to sort out at home. But I don't know if I'm coming back to Australia after that. You know, that's sort of undecided. I'm off contract at the end of this season, and you know, talks are ongoing at the moment. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I'd love to stay at Reddit. I'd love to. Old habits die hard. Old habits die hard.
Is this something
Sydney,
that we don't know?
No.
All right.
I'd love to stay at Sydney because there's a few records I'm really close to breaking. You know, I'm not far off the all-time goal scorer for them. I'm not far off the all-time A-League goal scorer for them, which I'm really, you know, disappointed in myself in because my body sort of let me down, giving me injuries, and you know, that's put me away from that. I quite easily and comfortably would have made them records. So it's obviously upsetting to leave, being so close to him if I do leave this season. But you know, that's football. But I would like to knock them off and leave a nice legacy here. But we've got a lot of things to do before that. You know, we've got the final series, which I'm you know, frothing for. Can't wait for to start with the Melbourne game, because it's going to be 2 massive games for us, and hopefully give ourselves a chance of getting to the GF and, you know, winning another GF. For me, that'd be amazing. That's 3 for me out of 5 seasons, but I was only here really 4 seasons. So, you know, it's a great ratio to have, I guess.
Well, Johnny, I'm going to hand back to you for the last couple of questions because, Adam, you're at the beginning of your day. We're at the end of the day on Sunday night.
No.
So,
long day at work.
Johnny, over to you.
Yeah.
For the last couple of questions.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, like, I'm a massive Sydney fan as well, mate. I've lived there for years, and like watching you guys doing what you're doing. What's it like, working with Steve Corica as a, you know, a lot of Reading fans remember him as a player against us. What's he like as a coach for you, and all the other coaches that you've worked with, Brian, who's obviously now got a job at Hibernian.
Yeah.
As somebody, you know, for your own coaching progression, what do you take from these guys?
I think ultimately a lot of successful people, I think what I've worked with, come down to the good people. Brian, brilliant person, knew how to get to different people's personalities, how to make them tick. Steve Corica, the same. Really good person, really good on the tactical side of things. Very open with his experienced players. You know, I think you have to be more so in football these days. Not so much asking for advice, but asking for opinions of do you think this is possible? What do you think about this? Like, I have quite a lot of say in how we press. Things are not working. I think the rabble are waking up now. My kids are here. Morning, girls. Yeah, my youngest and my eldest are up. Yeah, obviously I think Bimby's a fantastic coach in that aspect, where he'll give ownership to different people as well, and take ownership himself overall, because that's what you have to do. I think this season for me, Bimby took a lot of flack, as we all have to, as players. But I think what I admired most is he took the forefront of that, of all of the abuse of this is not good enough, that's not good enough, we want you out, blah blah blah. He stood there, took it, didn't put any of it on the players, just shielded the players from all of it completely. Obviously, you can't be fully completely because obviously social media, etc. But he took the blame in the press. You know, he took all that at that blame that we were getting and put it all on himself and just went, right, I'll take that. Obviously, and as players, you see that, and you respect that, and you want to fight, fight to help him because he's trying to shield you from that. And I think that's a great quality to have as a manager. Brian had that sort of quality about him, and managers who have, when we've been successful, that tends to be one of the underlying values, is that they're a good person, and they know what makes you tick as a player, and as a group as well. They're able to not create a siege mentality, but create a mentality of I'll defend you, you defend me, and we're all in this together. I think that's one of the main overriding factors you have to be able to create as a manager. And I think both of them managers have been fantastic in my time doing that.
I don't know if you've heard some of Paul Ince's comments over this year. So many times where he kind of basically threw the players under the bus and blamed everyone else, but didn't take that responsibility. And I think that's really what's not helped, Reading a lot. Especially young players. Senior players like Andy Carroll can take it a bit more because they're used to it, but not a 20-year-old lad who's just trying to make his game. But try to finish off on a positive note, because I know you've got your young one to look after. Can you take us back to that game, that Southampton game? Those 2 goals. Just relive it for us as a positive end to what's been a horrible season.
I think obviously might sort of going into that game, we've been obviously on a great run. I think I'd missed West Ham not long just before it, when we obviously went there and beat them 4-2, and I was absolutely gutted. So I'd not missed a game all season, and I missed that one game. And obviously the big games were coming up as well towards the end of the season. They mean more and more. And going into that game at Southampton, my mentality was, for me, I was almost invincible, because I wasn't starting, but I was so free coming on, because inevitably when I was coming on, it was when we were drawing or losing. So there was no pressure on me at all to do anything other than what I normally do. Just go and run around, see if I can get a goal.
What would Brian say to you when you just go for
it? Just as I'm coming on, it'd be like, go nick as a goal. Nothing too fancy or anything like that. Just go nick a goal. Go and do what you do. We had plenty of conversations before, because I wanted to start. It was like a double-edged sword for me. Like I loved playing, loved scoring goals. And obviously I wanted to start. Like when I first came in, I was starting. I scored a few early on. I know strikers do go for a bit of a barren spell. Wasn't quite working, in and out. And obviously then we got Robbo in, and we went on a great roll. And obviously I was disappointed not to play from the start, but obviously I was scoring. So for me, I had to be selfless in a way where I put my feelings aside, because if I'm winning every week and I'm scoring every week, why would I bother about starting, sort of thing? Like obviously I knew we were in a great role at the moment, so I needed to just obviously bite my tongue and go from there. And the Southampton game is a great example of a typical Reading performance for us. Like no one gives us a shot going there. Southampton were the fancy team of the league, and they had some fantastic players as well. Let's not pussyfoot around that. There's some great players. Ricky Lambert up front, Lallana, some top talents in that team. So, and obviously Billy Sharp as well, who's undoubtedly probably the best striker that's been in the Championship. So some absolute quality players. So obviously going 1-0 up there, Robbo scores. We think, hold on, we've probably scored a little bit too early here, but we'll take it. It was a great game. And then Southampton started to pile the pressure on. And Feds was fantastic. And I think, obviously, I think with a deflection from Ricky Lambert's shot that beat Feds. And obviously it was like to and fro. And to be fair, from what I remember, I don't think I thought, am I going to come on here? Like, obviously it's a point away from home is good. Like, especially at Southampton, maybe I don't come on so early, and I still come on pretty much a normal time. It's like 65 minutes, right? Don't tell Hunty's. I think no, that was when Benny came on. Hunty went to the wing. Like, I think J-Tab came off. I came on. I sort of played as like the split 9, and you know, we just carried on as normal, just went into normal. And obviously, even when I watch the game back, like my dad religiously watches them highlights on like BBC highlights.
You're not the only one.
Watches it whenever I'm at home, or I'll speak to my sister and she's like, "Guess what he's watching?" He's like watching Southampton and Reading. So, it's funny because that even me watching them goals, I get goose pimples and it's such an amazing thing. And I always laugh when I watch it back, and when I've scored and I'm running around the back of the net, and I always think, who's the one screaming? And then I realise it's me. It's like me running around going, ah! It's sort of like just running off on my own. It's them sort of memories are amazing for me as a player, because there's something I cherish for the rest of my life. And I think I've said before, I think I've got a special bond with certain clubs. I think I've had a really special bond with them, and Reading are probably the top of that list if you look back on my career and the success I had with Reading. Rightly so, they're at the top of that tree because of the connection we had as a player in club and a player in fan base. I love the fans and the fans love me in turn, and as a player, that's all you ask for.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Thank you.
All right, so Adam, I'd like to finish by wishing you the best of luck for the rest of the final series, and thanks ever so much for joining us.
Cheers, thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Adam. Good luck with the kids getting them breakfast.
Always.
Yeah, and
my youngest is just here now next to me. I've got to make it.
All right. Well, a reminder that on Wednesday evening, we'll be discussing what type of manager will be a good fit to take Reading forward. And our guest will be one of the managers who's on the bookmakers list of potential next Reading manager. So that episode is available from 6 p.m. on Wednesday. And then on Friday evening, Dylan Kerr is back, and we'll be joined by, as well as Dylan, some Reading fans to discuss what's gone wrong for Reading this season, in the last few seasons, and what needs to happen next for the club to bounce back.